So, we're back and we're ready to do this again. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Challenge Series is back from the summer break. Round 6 of the championship takes us to the historic Spa-Francorchamps circuit for the running of the Belgian Grand Prix. The series is racing here for the second time in the challenge history, with the first one being held back in 2020. Now, we all know how the real-life 2021 Belgian Grand Prix ended, so let's bring up a little spice for this race, shall we? In qualifying, Ramachi was on top once again, as it's becoming a usual thing by now. Maurizio Tessa managed to get second, ahead of Andrea Scudellaro, making it the 2-3 from Andre Racing. Lastia got his best ever qualifying position in 4th to compensate his team. Infinity Engineering struggled around this track, as Lukic only managed to get 5th, ahead of Alessandro Maggio in 6th in the LP. Stefano Colita is 7th, ahead of Corey Castelli, while Michel Moara and Elio Tartari closes up the top 10. Speaking of Tari, this is his first time he managed to get into the top 10. 16 cars on the grid, no rain indicated for this one, so that means the Grand Prix could get on the way without a problem. Ramachi gets off the line well, and he immediately pulls to the inside to block up Maurizio Tessa. The top 4 remained unchanged. We certainly had some incidents and attacks coming into the first corner, like Maggio's one for example. He gets off the line well, and he immediately jumps ahead of Lukic, but he misjudges his braking point and barely misses Lastia coming into the corner. Although he wasn't the only one who had an audacious move coming into turn 1. New boy Ferrara dives down the inside of Harry Smith and bunches him out of the way. And literally just in front of them, Tim Schmidt had to go wide coming into turn 1, and as he comes back on the track, he's slid into the weight of the cars! Harry just missed him, but Ferrara wasn't that lucky. Tim Schmidt was out on the spot, while Ferrara has to pit for a new front wing. And here's another audacious dive, this time for Bence Valdinger. They are 3 wide coming into the next corner, and this time Gaddy has to go wide. Castelli felt this is now or never. He dives down the inside of Bence Valdinger, and instead of giving Bence what he gave to him, he hops from the car. And to make matters worse, he was beached on the curb. Luckily for him, after a while, he managed to get back on track. As Ferrara came out of the pits, it became obvious that he's just a spanner in the work.
Blue flag! Blue flag! Blue fucking flag! Shut up!
He had to pull over to let all of the cars go through, but coming into a rouge, he beached his car. That is the worst possible section to get stuck. And Bence Valdinger just misses him. Luckily, he managed to keep going. Coming up to the Keno straight, Alex Maggio goes for a move round the outside of Lukic, and he easily gets it done by the end of the straight. The Keno straight has provided a lot of overtaking opportunities, which drivers used, like in the case of Lastia and Scudellaro. Even though it seemed as an easy move, Scudellaro tries to get back ahead of Lastia. And coming into the small hairpin, he barges the Racing Scudero's car out of the way, but that maneuver allowed the others to close up. Out in front, Ramachi is still leading for Maurizio Tessa, but the battle for 3rd place is still on. Tori feels like he could get the top 5 finish, so he dives down the inside of Colita coming into the bus stop chicane, but he lost the back end. Even though Molara has a little look, he can't attack him. Coming through a rouge, Colita has to cut the corner a bit, and as he comes back onto the track, Tartori almost hits him. That could have been a nasty hit. Scudellaro is powerless to defend on the straight, so Lastia goes round the outside of him once again.
Consider going up on top if the balance is a bit loose. And white button for turn 10.
And as Scudellaro tries desperately to get back ahead of Lastia, he accidentally closes the door on Maggio, who house spun around. It then costed the Alpine driver a lot of positions. What a chaotic start to the Belgian Grand Prix. The Mandre Racing car with the Mercedes engine is a really quick thing on the straights, so it's no surprise to see Tartori blast ahead of Lukic.
Stay in scenario 7 until turn 3. Track obstruction turn 1.
But coming into the bus stop chicane, Lukic tries to dive round the outside of Tori. They made a little bit of contact, and Lukic gets back ahead. But coming into the start-finish straight, Tartori gets ahead of him again. Well, despite his lockup coming into turn 1. Jill was struggling massively around this track. Even Getty tries to attack him coming into the next corner, where Jill runs wide and has to cut the chicane, and that cost him a position. In the battle royale for 4th, Maggio goes wide in the double left-hander, and Lukic goes past him. He rejoins, barely ahead of Molara.
Come on, this guy's a fucking dickhead! Get out of the fucking way!
You are doing a good job.
Coming into the next lap, Molara tries to dive down the inside of Maggio, but he accidentally misjudges his braking point and hits Lukic! Man, Lukic was so lucky that he didn't get spun out. Coming through Radion, Maggio zips past Molara.
Out of turn 8, press and hold overtake for 5 seconds.
Bence Valdinger was at the back of the field, struggling with his car to score points. But this wasn't what he needed.
Man, is this fucking guy blind? What the fuck is wrong with him?
Tartari goes for a move on Scudellaro and he easily gets ahead of him coming into the Canal straight. Even though he gets the overtake done, he had his Harry moment coming into the next corner. And that allows Scudellaro to come back for more. Looks like Lukic's struggles continues as he runs wide coming into the next corner and Molara blasts past him. And coming into Puon, he hits the curb, slids wide, and then smashes into Ferrara.
What a dickhead!
Luckily for both of them, no damage was done this time. The battle for third continues as Tartari slids wide after being overtaken by Scudellaro, and now Maggio tries to attack him. Not just tries, he gets ahead. Coming into turn 1, Jill locks up, and Gaddy tries to use this opportunity to get ahead of him.
Single press overtake here and out of turn 3.
They are will to will coming into the Canal straight. And coming into the next corner, Gillette rides on the curb, and Gaddy gets ahead. Although Gillette knows he has the better engine, he goes for a move on Gaddy once again. And coming out of Bonchimon, he gets ahead of him again.
Come on, baby!
Okay, push now, push now.
But this ding-dong battle isn't over.
And sock 2, sock 2.
Coming into Puon, Gaddy runs wide and then slams into the barrier. Now he has to come in for a new front wing.
Box, I lost the friggin' wing.
Yeah, coming in.
Although he suffered suspension damage, so he had to pull over.
Stop.
Looks like Tim Schmidt somehow got back into the race. But things aren't getting better. Once again he slams into the barrier, loses his front wing, and pulls over to retire. And for real this time.
Sorry guys, sorry there.
After his first stop, Colita gets back onto the track, only to spin at the pit exit. That's the Grosjean level embarrassment. As the leaders making their first stops, Tartari set the podium in his sights as he goes for a move on Molara, again! Or not as he comes into the pits. Romanchi made his first stop, Tessa wasn't, and everybody knew the result of that. Maggi is pushing really hard to get a good point scoring position for the team as he goes round the outside of Tartari coming into the left-hander, then switches to the inside and gets ahead. Thanks for that cut, Wass! Anyway, Sartori comes back for more. And once again, it's a textbook move by him. Coming into a hairpin, Major once again tries to dive back down the inside, but another way he intended. Molar just made his pit stop when he comes back behind Gillett, who hasn't made a stop yet. He immediately goes for a move around the outside and gets the place. Although watch out, because the troublemaker Ferrara is back on track again. This time when he tries to pull over, his rear end stepped out and then slams into Molara. Then blocks Gillett. Looks like we got the Mazepin of the race. As Harry makes his first and final stop, coming out of the pits, he slams into the pit wall. Now that's another level of embarrassment as he retires on the spot.
Did not too clever, this guy.
Federer tries to pull over from Lustia, and when he thought things couldn't get worse, it got worse. A glitch outside the track sent him into the air, and that flipped his car upside down. Luckily, he managed to keep going. And then later on, he got a puncture. He had to limp back to the pits. But coming into the bus stop chicane, he beats his car on the curb. Luckily, he managed to keep going, but his seemed more like a Benny Hills episode. And then coming into the start-finish straight, he almost blocks Tessa! And coming into the corner at the end of the Camel Straight, Casali slams into him. And then at the end of the lap, he cuts across from Machi. When I told he's the new Mazepin of the race, I wasn't lying. Luckily, a crash coming through Radion sent him out of the race permanently. Looks like Scudellaro is really pushing to get back up the field. He's currently behind Colita, but he goes for a move down the inside of Puan. And he gets ahead. Now there's another overtake that you can only see in sim races. His teammate wasn't lucky, however. Maurizio Testa got disconnected from the server, and he had to retire from the race. Now it's a battle for the podium. Can Tartari hold Scudellaro back? Well, seemingly not, as he goes down the inside and gets ahead. A pretty average race at Belgium comes to an end as Ramachi wins the Belgian Grand Prix in style. 6 out of 6. Count them now. Lustia comes home to get his first podium of the season, making it the 1-2 for Racing Scuderas, while Andrea Scudellaro finishes in 3rd, limiting the damage to rival teams. Tartari finishes 4th, his best result of the season, ahead of Stefano Colita, best result of the season in 5th, ahead of Michel Molara, Joe Gillett, who somehow managed to get into 7th, and Corey Castelli was the last point scoring car. The last car who finished this race, because half of the field retired. Even though Tessa and Harry closes up the top 10, that doesn't mean they will get points, because they haven't reached 90% of the race distance. Ramachi's 3rd title is coming ever closer and closer. His best chance to get it before the end of the season is in Portugal. Can he get it? Will Scudero do something to stop it, or at least delay it? We'll see. He's currently lying in 2nd, ahead of Luka Lukic in 3rd, Maurizio Tessa in 4th, Stefano Colita 5th, and Gillett in 6th. Juan Guerrero is in 7th, ahead of Daste, the kicked out Dragon, Ilya Tartari, and George Simolis. Racing Scuderas continues to extend his lead in the Constructors' Championship ahead of Mandarin Racing, Infinity Engineering, and Black CF1, who managed to climb up to 4th. Delta Sim Racing dropped down to 5th, while Miles Prime Mechanics dropped down to 6th. Alpine remained in 7th, ahead of Greek Racing Team, Racing Martus, ATC Racing, and Andrew Singh Club, who haven't showed up at the Belgian Grand Prix. Coming into this race weekend, they have announced due to financial troubles, the team has to pull out from the sport. That left 10 teams to fight for the title, who will clinch it by the end of the season. Join us in 2 weeks' time when we head into Italy for the running of the Italian Grand Prix.